What's good, everyone? Today we're going to be here for my round 10 AFL tips and predictions. I'm back from Launceston and I'm starting not to like footy that much. And it isn't just because my team sucks now, it's also got something to do with how poorly I've done in my footy tips. So if you want to get straight into my tips for round 10, there's a timestamp on screen. Otherwise, we'll go through and starting with a round 9 tips. And my score I got was 4 out of 9. I'm now overall bottom 30%. I forgot again to tip on the Thursday. I did tip Melbourne by 5 though, and I was almost actually correct with that. Then I tipped Geelong to beat Port Adelaide like most would have. I tipped Freo to beat Sydney. Whenever I go the upset, I always get the upset wrong. I tipped St Kilda, of course. I tipped GWS, and then, 2 upsets occurred, which I got them wrong. And I finished well, but everyone would have got these tips right anyways. The Dogs, the Suns, the Pies. And then I tipped Adelaide to beat Brisbane. It was a draw, so technically that is a correct tip, but it's a 4 out of 9. It's just horrendous. Now, looking at this, I've got a total score of 43. I'm ranked 1,172nd, but I think that's because, remember one round, I think it might have been last round, I didn't tip at all. It gave me a 0 for that, so technically I'm on 48, but it still isn't good. SJM, DMM, using the Joker, got a score of 8, 16, so did Shaky. A few also used the Joker and got a 7, including AFL Goat HQ. No one got a 9, though. If I'm going down, Cod Machine got an 8 with a margin of 0, same with Jake Patel. To be fair, it's actually been a while since anyone's gotten a perfect round in my comp. Total score, let's have a look, and it's Butsy96 still on the top with 75. Swan Hunter, Skibbid, Himash, X25 Vision. Remember, after round 12, the leader after that round gets a bit of a cash prize. But we will worry about the big calls for this round. As you can see up on the screen, I ended up getting a score of 3 out of 9, which means that I avoided this week's punishment, and this week's punishment was a pretty bad one, which means I do avoid this week's punishment, and it was not a very good one actually. It's from AFL Heat, which was go to a team's cheer squad and start making chants for the opposing team till they get kicked out. And realistically, it's one of those punishments where I just don't really want to do it. It's one that's not a good look. You act like a bit of a wanker, you might get into trouble. So I do avoid it, thankfully. Through the big calls I'll quickly go through. So the first one I got right was Charlie Curnow and Mackay to combine for 3 or less goals against the D's, and that did happen. They kicked 3 together. For Sydney, I said the two sides to combine for 145 or less points, and that also happened. And then the last one I got correct was in Gold Coast v North. I said that the Suns would have 11 or more goals in any half, and in the second half they recorded 12 goals. So that was the 3 that I needed to get right. This week I also need to get 3 correct. I also still need to finish my Fireman Sam punishment. I've got the Essendon v North library stream later this week, and I got to send that North Melbourne email sometime in the next few weeks also, because they still need to be completed. We'll do a quick fantasy review. Unlike last week, I did actually quite decent. I got 2,053, so for my standards isn't too bad. A few trades might need to be made. Maybe I get rid of Sheezel. He's not really performing the best. We've got a new person on top of the ladder for fantasy. Risky Biscuits Aaron V has an average points of 2,018, total of 18,162, and overall ranking 1,024. Where am I ranked? 166. This week, I'm actually also going to be using my Joker for the first time. And it's not because I think this round I'm guaranteed to do well. It's more just the fact that I've got to stop this streak somehow. So even if I use a Joker, I might get an 8 instead of a 4. Now, we're almost at 35k subscribers on the channel. Again, as you can see with the graphic there, a lot more than 50% of the people watching are not subscribed to the channel. And I do these tips every week, as well as other content like the vlogs, the challenges, the other sit-down videos. So if you're a big footy fan, you've been keeping up to date with the tips and all that, and you haven't yet hit the subscribe button, hopefully this can change your mind. We want to get to 35k really close. We want to get there before the end of May. So hit that subscribe button and let's get right into the tips. All right, let's start off with round 10 tips. The first game on a Thursday night, we've got the Suns and the Cats at TO Stadium. I think this game's going to be a lot tighter than what the ESPN tipsters are suggesting. 88 to Cats, 12 to Gold Coast. Who knows? I think this actually might be a chance of an upset. The Cats are starting to slip up a little bit. They've got a couple of losses now in a row. They're off to 7-2. It was a weird game for the Cats because they started off terribly. The power just all over them. I think it was the most the Cats have conceded in a first quarter under Chris Scott. The Cats got to a 49-point deficit at one stage, and they did come back against Port. They actually almost won. It was expected. They thought I'd come back at GMHBA. But overall, it was too little too late. And then as for Gold Coast, they just did what everyone expected them to do, taking care of North comfortably. They won by 68 points. I thought they'd get it done by like 60, so it was just one of those easy results that you always see at TO Stadium. The Suns make that Granite Fortress now. Their last 5 games there have all been W's. So because of that reason alone, and the fact that it's a TO Stadium, the Suns, I feel like they play their best footy there as well as in the Gold Coast. And the Cats, they're going to be without Jezza for the concussion protocols. I don't think Hawthorn is playing. So they wouldn't be as accustomed to the conditions as I think the Suns. And I think in the first game of the round, the Suns are going to just find a way to get up in a bit of an upset. And because it's a Thursday night, they're not going to get it done closely. It'll be a relatively comfortable win. In a bit of an upset here, I'll probably be wrong, but we're going to go for it. The Suns by 21 points, and my big call that the Suns lead for 75% or more of the game. Now on the Friday night, we have Sydney take on Carlton, and this could actually be my pick for the most exciting and biggest blockbuster potential clash of the round. The Swans obviously at the moment, they're top of the ladder, they're flying, premiership favourites like the last few weeks. And their percentage of 151.9 is really, really massive after a big win over the Dockers. And that was one in the first half for the Swans. Accuracy did win them that game early. But it wasn't just accuracy. I thought their ball movement, the way they transitioned the ball, they were just silky smooth. Dockers' accuracy, well, that was literally lopsided with how badly that was. But the Swans, they just did what they needed to do. And they got a very impressive, convincing win away from home against a side that are tough to play against. So the Swans will be very happy with that win. They're now back home. They're playing against a tough side in the Blues. I feel like the Blues were a little bit lucky at the end of the day against the D's. I'm not saying that they didn't deserve the win, but what I'm saying is that if the game went on for any longer, I feel like they probably could have lost that with how many entries the D's had in that last quarter. Well, really that last half. After the first 10 minutes of that second quarter, it was really all Melbourne, to be fair. Walsh was very good for the Blues, to be fair, especially in that first half. But I think Carlton definitely want to be a bit more consistent. Ultimately, though, this is going to be really tough for the Blues. I can't remember the last time they won at the SCG, and I just think the Swans, you want to trust the side at home, the side with a little bit more class. For this game, as much as I could see Carlton maybe pinching it in an upset in a good game of footy, I'm leaning on the Swans here. I think it'll be a good game. I'll go the Swans to win it by 6 points. My big call. Both sides have a goal-kicking accuracy of 60% or more. Now for the Saturday games, we head to the MCG to start things off between Collingwood and Adelaide. And the Pies are now back in the 8 for the first time this season. They haven't lost a game since round 2 against the Saints, so they're definitely back into form now, and they demolished the Eagles on the weekend, despite themselves having heaps of outs and looked really great, particularly in that second quarter. Dacos back to his best. He had a really good game. I thought Sullivan in his debut game performed really well, particularly in that first half. And as for the Crows, well, they would say they dropped a winnable game for sure. They were definitely a chance of that game against the Lions, but it was neck and neck throughout the entire contest, and it was hard to really know who was the better side. I mean, I thought there were moments where Adelaide looked the stronger side, then Brisbane made a response and a charge, and I thought a draw was, in a way, a bit of a fitting result against two sides who have been disappointing so far this season. Dawson, Rankin, Fogarty start. I thought Rankin's had an incredible start to the year. He is at the moment definitely my All-Australian side. Yeah, this is definitely a massive game for the Crows to pinch an upset, otherwise their season slips away big time. But I think they're a chance, as much as Collingwood are in some really good form. I think the Crows are a chance. They beat the Blues away, and they've been involved in quite a few thrillers against the Pies in the last few seasons. To be fair, the Pies have always been getting the upper hand, and I think it's going to be something similar. The Crows are competitive for most of the game, but Collingwood are just a slight class above at home at the MCG. And again, I feel like I want to be safe in these ones. As much as I could think an upset could occur, I'm not going to go and back it in. I'm going to say the Pies get the job done, and I'm going to go by 11 points with my big call that both sides win 2 quarters. Next up, 4:35 PM at NG Stadium, we got the GWS and the Western Bulldogs. And as you can see behind me, we finally got a Western Bulldogs scarf again. It was about time. It was very fitting that we, I guess, got it after a really big win against the Tigers. They were definitely back to their best, albeit it was against a depleted Richmond side, but I still thought they had a lot of star performances. Obviously, Bontempelli, Norton kicked 4, Bailey Dale, Treloar had 41. Treloar was their best player. I mean, he started for sure, and I thought they definitely could have won the game by 100 with how poorly Richmond were. The Giants definitely would also be desperate to get back on the winners list. They've had a poor month of footy, it has to be said. They've lost 3 of the last 4 games. They just got outworked after half time. I thought they just couldn't get anything going forward. Toby Green is a bit of a mystery so far this year. He continues to be poor. He definitely would love a rebound game, and definitely against the Western Bulldogs, it's sort of a team I feel like Toby Green can get back to his best. He does play some good footy against the Western Bulldogs, and I think they probably should get back to the winners list, the Giants. It's against the Bulldogs, a side that, it's weird, they're such a lopsided side. One week they can look really good, the other week they can look really poor. They've got almost the second best percentage in the competition, the Dogs, yet they're sitting 11th and have really no one thinking they're going to make the finals. It's a much difficult opponent for the Dogs, a side that I think I can't trust away, particularly against the good sides. And the Giants just got to get back to their winners list. They've been in some poor form. They don't want to start slipping their season away here. I think the Giants should get the job done in an alright contest, but I'm going to go the Giants by 24 points. My big call, Marcus Bontempelli steps up big time and he kicks 3 or more goals. Alrighty, next up at Marvel Stadium, we got the Saints and the Dockers, and this game has now become a lot more significant for St Kilda if they actually want any chance at doing anything this season, with their season slipping away. Obviously, fall down on the ladder. They dropped the game against the Hawks. A bit of an unlosable game, although it was in Tassie, to be fair, and the Hawks are always one of those weird sides in Tassie. But our game plan is just in some serious doubt. I feel like we've got to switch things up now. We're just such a slow and such a safe footy side. It's never exciting when you're watching a St Kilda game, and it's really frustrating as a fan that I actually want to see some entertaining games of footy. We made it really difficult to score on the weekend, only kicking 7, and we only kicked 1 goal from general play. All other goals were from set shots. We dropped another close game against a crappy side, so I don't really understand how that keeps happening. The Dockers had it tough on the weekend, but they still battled hard, even though they did end up losing the game by, 7 or 8 goals. But obviously, with all the talk about McCarthy earlier that day, the fact that the players still put on a decent effort, and they had to perform under all those difficult circumstances. Really difficult when you realise you've lost a close mate after, Cam McCarthy passed away. So you can definitely let the Dockers off on that one. You can't really fault their efforts against a top quality Sydney side. And they were actually alright. They just couldn't kick straight. And then they just ended up dropping their efforts after the game progressed. And I just felt like this game, they should definitely bounce back. I feel like they probably will against the Saints, because overall, the Dockers have been a better side than St Kilda this season. And I think this is a 50-50 game, probably the closest and hardest game to tip this round. But I honestly have more faith in Freo. I know it's in Marvel, but I just feel like they've been the better side. They're more capable, I feel like, even up forward, and also in the midfield, they're definitely going to probably smash the Saints. I think it's going to be another one of those low-scoring games you see between these two sides. It'll be close, but the Dockers get the chocolates in mine. I'm not tipping the Saints because I haven't really got any faith at the moment. I'm going to go the Dockers to win this game by 9 points, with my big call that the Dockers lead by 30 or more points at any stage of the game. Also on the Saturday night, we got Brisbane and Richmond at the Gabba. Despite drawing against the Crows last week and being still a fair bit away from finals, this definitely could still be a really big win for Brisbane. The Lions last week were definitely gutsy, and I arguably say they deserve the win a little bit more than Adelaide, given they were playing away, given they had all those adversities with their injuries. They've still put up a really good challenge, almost got the win. Obviously, the game ended up being a draw. I think they're going to bounce back and really want a big win against Richmond, who are a side also hit with injuries, but definitely been hit a lot more worse with the injuries. Definitely the most injury-depleted side. And it got worse for them against the Dogs. I think they ended up with only 2 on the bench for half of the game. 3 more injuries. I think Rioli was one, Sam Banks was another. I can't remember the third one, but despite even those injuries, the fact they had no one on the bench, their competitiveness against the Bulldogs was really poor. They had a few plays back to the side, and they just were not looking good from the word go. They got smashed in the contest. They got done in every area of the ground. It was, 12 to 38 scoring shots as well. So Richmond just got absolutely smashed. And they're just looking like a side this year that are going to struggle against most and going to be finding it really difficult to pick up another win unless it's North Melbourne. Yeah, I can't see the Tigers winning this game. I can't see them being competitive, to be honest with you, particularly at the Gabba. I know the Lions haven't been the best this year at the Gabba, but they'll bounce back. They'll get a big win, and I think the Lions get the win by 67 points. The big call, Dane Zorka continues his really good form, and he has 140 or more fantasy points. Alrighty, as we now head to the Sunday games, definitely much easier to tip, I feel like, on the Sunday. We start off with Essendon and North Melbourne, and at the moment it seems like both these sides couldn't be any further apart when it comes to performances. Essendon are currently flying at the moment. They're proving that they may be genuine contenders this year. They have released the remaining of the fixtures this year, and the Bombers have been, handed like 3 or 4 Friday night time slots, and that's because of the fact they're third on the ladder. They prove everyone wrong, and they're just, playing some really good footy. Their pressure and their defense after halftime against GWS was awesome, and it killed the Giants. They were, unable to do much after halftime, and they ran over the top of them really, really well, the Bombers. For once, it seems like they're playing with a sense of direction. And third on the ladder, they could be in the top 2 after this week if I get my Suns tip right, because they're playing North, and at the moment, North Melbourne is basically a free win. I don't really know where to start with them. Another week where they've conceded over 100, another week where they've lost by over 35 points. Basically the same old story for North Melbourne, lacking effort, competitiveness, leadership. And even Sheasel's starting to drop off a little bit. I know he's moved to a different position and all that. And I think they will respond a little bit. They're back in Marvel. The fans are going to want something. And with North Melbourne, they always seem to play half decent against Essendon. We saw it last year where they were involved in 2 close games. I know Essendon are a lot better of a side, I feel, this year. Maybe North are a little bit worse, but still, I think we'll see something from North where they provide a bit of competitiveness for patches at Marvel. Maybe Essendon get a little bit ahead of themselves. Maybe last week, they gave them too much of an effort. But regardless, I still think it's an easy tip here. And I'm still going to tip Essendon to win this game relatively comfortably. I'm not going to say by a massive amount, though. I think North will be okay. But Essendon by 28 points with my big call. North Melbourne scored 12 or more goals. The game on the Sunday twilight, we've got Port Adelaide and Hawthorn at the Adelaide Oval. Port recorded a famous win at GMHBA, the first time in 17 years since 2007. And that was led by one of the greatest first quarters I've not just seen from Port Adelaide, but I've seen from any side in quite some time. It was flawless footy from Port. Kicked 8 goals. They kicked 12 goals at like the 10th minute mark of the second quarter. And obviously because of how great they started, it was expected they'd slow down a little bit against the Cats side at GMHBA that needed a response. that was the case, yet they still held on. I know people were complaining about the umpires, but the Power deserved to win the game. Let's be real. I thought Butters was great. Horne-Francis, Wines, Willie Rioli, all were massive in the win. And, they're back into a bit of form now. Hawthorn also finding form, though, with a win on the weekend. 3 of the last 4. Don't want to talk about this game too much. If you want to see my vlog, you can. It's up on the channel. But, they came out to play early. They brought out the heat in the contest. They kicked 3 of the first 4 goals. In fact, the Hawks were actually in front for the entirety of the match. It was the first time they've won a game leading the entire match since 2022. So they were just simply a little bit better than the Saints. They were a bit classier. They matched it with the Saints, who were poor. Their midfield I thought was a lot stronger as well. And I just thought they were pretty good. The Hawks are starting to find a little bit of form. This is going to be a difficult one, though. The Power are normally too strong at the Adelaide Oval, and against sides like Hawthorn, will we see some sort of a competitive effort? Maybe. Will they match it with Port Adelaide in all the areas? Probably not, and not at the Adelaide Oval, I wouldn't think. It's going to be a much tougher task as well, comparing it to the Saints. So I think Hawthorn could give us some more signs of good footy, but I think overall Port Adelaide need to win this game, get to the top 4 maybe if they win this. So I'll say Power win it by 33 points. My big call is that the Power record the highest score this season, which I believe is 123 or more. And the final game we have at Optus Stadium, West Coast and Melbourne at 6:20 p.m. A bit of an irrelevant clash, although I'll probably still stream it. Hopefully we see a bit of a contest, although, as of late, these sort of games have always been pretty poor. Hopefully West Coast respond, though. They seem to be playing a little bit better footy at Optus. Even though maybe they are going to start dropping off again, the Eagles, who knows. Last week against Collingwood was a bit disappointing. I know they would have found it tough with a few key outs. The Pies also had some key outs themselves. They ended up losing the game by 11 goals. And it was a dominant Pies midfield display, it has to be said, especially in that first half. They completely killed the Eagles. I feel like that, despite that poor second quarter, they weren't awful. They showed a few signs. And you think they should be a little bit better back at home this week. The D's, on the other hand, they started shocking against the Blues, and that ultimately cost them the game. I think at one stage the scoreline read 36-0. So they were down by 6 goals early in that second quarter. They didn't score in that first quarter. It took them ages to score. They finally got back into the game. They destroyed the inside 50 count, I think by over 20. And had a massive surge after half-time. They had so many chances as well. Like, after being down by 36 points, I said it earlier, they should have probably won the game. It was quite an incredible fight back, but it was hard in the wet. I thought Petrarca had as good as a performance that you could have asked for. He was almost the match winner. He kicked 5. The only player for the D's who really provided much X factor. He did about as much as he could in those shitty conditions. Despite it being at Optus, I think the D's should definitely be too strong for West Coast. West Coast will be better than they were last week, but I think the D's still should win this game relatively comfortably by like 40 plus. I'll say Melbourne win the game by 43 points. With my big call, that West Coast score is kept under 60%. So that'll be it for the round 10 tips. I went most of the home teams, as you can see. The Suns, the Swans, the Pies, the Giants, the Lions. It's weird that I've actually not gone the Saints and gone the Dockers. Also the Bombers, the Power, and the D's. Going to be working really hard on some content this week. I got the Gather Round vlog on Wednesday, and at least 2 or 3 more bits of content after that for the rest of the week. So stay tuned for a lot more content on the channel, and we'll see you very soon in my next video.